Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Coffee with Alan. And in today's module, I want to take you guys to research. Now, research is done for various purposes. Some people do research because they want to come up with different findings. Probably the findings are going to be used in decision making. Some people do research because they want to pass the exams because research is part of college exams and university exams. So there are various reasons as to why people do research. And when it comes to doing research, there are various factors that are supposed to be considered. One of the key factors that is supposed to be considered when it comes to doing research is basically identification of a research problem. You can't actually go ahead to do a research if you don't know what you're researching about. So it is actually necessary for one to actually identify a problem that they want to research on. Thereafter, after identifying the problem, you need to go ahead to actually formulating a hypothesis. So that's the other step that people actually follow through when it comes to doing their research papers. The next thing is basically coming up with a list of relevant studies. And that's basically what you want to actually focus on in this video. So when it comes to actually coming up with a list of relevant studies, many people use various methods to come up with the relevant studies. Some people actually go to libraries, go research from books that are actually placed in the libraries and all that. Other people actually come up with a list of relevant studies by going online, basically researching from the online sources and all that. So when it comes to actually coming up with a list of relevant studies from the online sources, there are some sources that are credible and there are those that are not credible, especially when you're doing a research paper. So how will you identify a credible source that will help you out in coming up with a list of relevant studies? It is easy. We have some sources that are basically approved, and these sources are approved for anyone. Either you're a student or basically if you're working, then you can basically use these sources to come up with a list of relevant studies that are credible and that are going to help you out in doing a good research paper. So allow me to share my screen so that I can get to show you some of these credible sources that you can actually use when it comes to actually coming up with a list of relevant studies. So let me share my screen very quickly. And in this case, I'll just go to my browser. And when I'm on my browser, I'll just go to my search engine, which is Google, and I'll just type one of the sources, which I will also want you to go out and check out on it, which is none other than Google Scholar. So Google Scholar is basically one of the sources that contains scholarly articles. People actually do research papers, scholars do research papers and upload these papers on Google Scholar so that you and I, if you want to actually go about doing our research papers, we can go and research from the papers that these scholars have already written and stored on Google Scholar. So when you're on, when you've searched for Google Scholar, basically that's the URL for it. It is https://scholar.google.com. And you'll realize that Google Scholar is one of the very many Google applications. So just open that link and you're going to be redirected to the Google Scholar landing page where you can actually go ahead to extracting those papers. So Google Scholar basically helps people, do research, as I've said earlier, and you can do research from articles and case laws. So in case you want to research on a law-related paper, then you can basically also use Google Scholar to extract papers that are law-related, and you can actually go about doing research from such papers. So when it comes to actually doing your research paper, you'll realize that at some point you need to borrow ideas from already existing papers. And in this case, Google Scholar also helps you out in doing what you call citations. So we're going to see basically how you can extract citations, or basically how you can extract references in the different referencing styles. Because one thing that you need to understand is when you're doing your research paper, you're going to be requested or you're going to be required to format that paper in the different referencing styles. And we have a couple of referencing styles that are there. We have APA style, we have the MLA style, we have the Chicago style, we have the Harvard style, and we have very many other referencing styles that are available. So you're going to use a referencing style that you shall have been asked to use to format your paper with. Now, as you can see, we are on Google Scholar, and let's assume that we want to do a research on a paper that's on effects of COVID-19. So you just come here on the search box and put the title of that subject that you want to do your research on. And in this case, our subject is effects of COVID-19. So you just come up with the title and then click on the search box. So when you click on the search box, you'll basically get a couple of papers written, and these papers are all about effects of COVID-19. The very first paper is this one, as where my cursor is basically hovering around. The second paper is this one, the third paper is this one, the fourth paper is this one. And when you scroll down, you're going to get very many other papers that were written by different people concerning the effects of COVID-19. So one thing that you also need to understand when it comes to research is you are required to do your research from recently published papers, unless you're doing your research on a history related paper. That's only when you're going to actually do a research from papers that were written long ago. But if you're doing a research on a paper that's basically not history related, you're supposed to go for papers that are recently published papers. And in this case, how recent? I know someone might ask me that question. You're supposed to go for papers that are not more than 5 years old from the time that you're living in. And how do you go about extracting papers that are not more than 5 years old? On this left-hand side of the screen, there's this place which actually has these years written, and there's this place written custom range. So click on custom range, and when you click on it, you're going to get text boxes that will basically now require you to put the years that or basically to put the time frame. And in this case, I'm going to put the year that I'm in, which is 2022, and then 2022 minus 5, I'm going to get 2017, which is basically the time frame, the 5 years time frame. After doing that, then you click on search. So the papers that are going to appear after searching are basically papers that shall have been actually published between the year 2017 and 2022. So after getting those papers, how do you go about now reading through a paper and extracting content from that paper? Or how do you go about researching from such a paper? The research process is very easy. You just click on the title of that paper, and that paper is going to be opened. So just click on the title of that paper, and that paper is going to be opened. And as you can see, this is one of the papers that I've just opened. So you can just go ahead to read through this paper and extract content from it. And after you've extracted content from it, and you've used that content in your research, then you need to go ahead and do what you call citing. So how do you go about citing again? Citing is very easy. You just go back to that paper that you just researched from, and the paper is this one here, the very first paper. When you take a look at this paper, or when you take a look at this first paper that I'm talking about here, below it, there's this button which is written Cite. So when you click on Cite, you're going to get a pop-up menu that basically contains the different citations in the different referencing styles. So you're going to actually now pick a referencing style that you shall have been asked to use. So if you're actually doing a research paper and you have been asked to format that paper using Harvard style, then you're going to basically now put all your references in Harvard style. And how do you extract these references? Extraction of references is also easy. You extract your references by just highlighting on that reference and then copying it and pasting it on that research paper of yours. So when it comes to actually researching, it is as easy as that. So to all researchers, when it comes to actually now finding a list of relevant sources, you can basically use Google Scholar, which is one of the best platforms where you can go and get papers that were published by scholars, and you can go read through those papers, or you can go research through those papers and extract references for those papers. So till next time, enjoy this video.